It took me 18 years to realize and embrace what I am. For as long as I can remember, I've heard stories about my mom's life growing up in Hood River. Her parents immigrated from Japan and had 8 children. They were all incarcerated during World War II, except for her brothers, who served in the military intelligence service in U.S. Armed Forces. Mom was only a grade school girl. Over 110,000 Japanese Americans were incarcerated in prison camps for over 3 years during World War II. Most never talked about their experience and are called the silent generation. Fortunately, my mom spoke up. She wrote a book and has given countless talks about Japanese American incarceration. There's a grainy photograph of her in camp in a Christmas pageant. She's dressed as an angel, and she's holding a microphone. She likes to joke that once she was handed a mic, she didn't stop talking. Thank goodness for that. She tells a story about Mrs. Bettesworth, whose house she passed by every day walking to and from school. Before the war, Mrs. Bettesworth offered Mom milk and cookies and invited her to play on her tire swing. After the war, Mrs. Bettesworth came out to the road every day, sicked her dog on Mom, and yelled at her, "Go back where you came from, you dirty yellow Jap." She talks about the social isolation she suffered. On the playground, no kids would play with her. In high school, no one would go to the dance with her. Even in church, no one would sit on the same pew with her. When she was 15 years old, she contemplated suicide. She hated being Japanese, and in the 9th grade, without telling anyone in her family, she changed her name from Mitsuko to Mitzi. My parents met at a college friend's party. They couldn't have looked more different. My dad, with Norwegian, German, and English blood, stood 14 inches taller than my mom. They both loved children, but they contemplated having none. They were worried their mixed-race kids might face the kind of persecution and social isolation my mom suffered. But they had 3 boys. I'm the youngest. I inherited my father's light skin, height, and Western eyes. My middle name, Asai, is my mom's family name. She taught me how to write it in kanji, and she still has papers from elementary school where I signed my name Toby Asai in kanji Loftus. I called myself Japanese American, but I don't look Japanese, and I grew up far from my mom's family. We drive up to Hood River maybe once a year. And from a very early age, I remember admiring and envying the beautiful almond-shaped eyes of my cousins. I thought mine, in comparison, looked saggy and tired. They all knew my grandparents, but I'm the youngest of the generation, so I never did. I yearned to know them more and to further embrace my Japanese heritage. Growing up in Coos Bay, I'd hear jokes about Chinks and Japs. I'd say, "Hey, you know I'm half Japanese, right?" They'd look at me, "Yeah, but you're different," as if that makes it okay. I'd see kids pull their eyes back to mock Asians, and I'd seethe silently inside. But I also felt conflicted. Those were the kind of eyes that I wish I had. There was another boy in high school who was half Japanese. He looked Asian, and he was heavy-set. He was teased and bullied mercilessly. I was disgusted. But to my shame, I said and did nothing. I hid behind my white skin and my Western eyes so as not to become a target. My father was kind, generous, and supportive. He was a professional musician and taught music, and when I was just 4 years old, he placed a tiny violin into my stubby hands, launching me on a lifetime musical journey. As a family, we played string quartets together. My brothers played, and I played violin, my mom played cello, and my father viola. When I was in junior high and high school, my father and I played dinner music together in a local restaurant. When we'd play, our eyes would meet, and we'd smile. When I was finishing high school, Mom encouraged me always to check the box for Japanese American on any of my college and scholarship forms, which I did. I was accepted to Brown University and invited to their pre-orientation program for students of color. There were 4 groups: African Americans, Asian Americans, Latinos, and the multiracial group. I gravitated to the Asian American group. On the last day of the program, each group gave presentations. Most made jokes and funny skits about racial stereotypes we hear and see every day. I was in a silly skit about a team of competition eaters called the Flying Chopsticks. Then the multiracial group got up. Instead of jokes and skits, each student stepped forward and spoke from the heart about what it meant to them to be multiracial. They talked about love, overcoming hate, ignorance, and fear. With each story, I was more and more touched and moved, but also conflicted and embarrassed. I should have been in that group. I finally had awakened to the reality I had been avoiding my life. I ignored the part of me I inherited from my loving father, except when it served or protected me. I couldn't get back to my dorm room fast enough to call him up and apologize. I'm sorry for all those years I called myself Japanese American. I never acknowledged you and what you gave me. He chuckled. Don't worry about it. I'm just proud of you. Years later, I was in Coos Bay visiting my folks for the weekend. As usual, Dad and I played music together for hours. We played our favorite Mozart piano violin sonatas and Fritz Kreisler schmaltz. As we played, our eyes would meet and we smile. Sunday morning, before I drove back home to Portland, I gave Dad a big, long hug goodbye. When I got home, there was a message on my answering machine from Mom. Dad had been hit by a drunk driver and was being transferred to a hospital in Eugene. This was not good. It must have been serious. I quickly showered, repacked my bags, grabbed my violin, and started the drive down to Eugene. Dad was in a coma. Family and friends gathered, hoping and praying that he would wake up. I pulled out my violin and started playing those tunes we played years ago in the restaurant. I was hoping he'd wake up and our eyes would meet and we'd smile. But he never did. I was holding one of his large, gentle hands in mine when he drew his final breath. I was devastated. I'd lost my father, and I can't describe how much I missed the deep, emotional, intimate, spiritual connection I felt with him when we played music together. A year after his death, I started looking for other people to play music with. At my company, I posted a sign on the wall, "Does anybody else play the violin?" And 2 violinists showed up. We started playing violin trios together. Then a cellist showed up. Mom, next time you come to Portland, bring Dad's old viola and some easy string quartet music. I've since fallen in love with the viola and its dark, rich tones. I love playing chamber music, and I've been performing with Newport Symphony for over 18 years now. When people ask me, "What do you do?" I say, "I support my viola habit working in high tech." I'm enjoying playing music as much as I ever have in my entire life. I can only imagine what my father might say. I've been learning more about my Japanese heritage. Mom and I have made some long trips to Japan, and we've collected stories and photographs and spent hours poring over Japanese family trees. I've been assisting her for years with her Japanese American incarceration talks, and with her blessing, I've begun starting to give talks of my own. I'm also learning about my European heritage. My last name, Loftus, comes from Norwegian town Loftus, although I've learned my ancestors actually came from a different town, Hjartdal. Last Christmas, a former Norwegian exchange student friend of mine came and visited me. She gave me a book with pictures showing traditional Norwegian folk costumes. She marked the pages of the Telemark region where my ancestors are from. She's invited me to come to Norway, and you know I can't wait to go. I'm creating my own story, while at the same time embracing the responsibility of keeping the story of both my parents alive. Now, when I have a form to fill out, if I can't choose multiple boxes, or if there's no multiracial box, I leave that part blank. It frustrates and angers me how that still happens so often today. I've come to peace with my unique identity. I'm Japanese, but I don't look Japanese. I look white, but I'm not white. I'm proud of my unique, rich blend. I am a multiracial American.